The wrestling world would be put into shock when it was announced that CM Punk was fired from AEW. After this announcement, the question started to arise in my head. How did we get here? How did we get from The Last Dance to 2 years later, Punk's controversial exit from the company? That's what we're here to talk about today. Welcome to the Wrestling Universe channel. My name's Cosk, and today I am going to talk about what went wrong with CM Punk in the AEW. So how did we get here? To really understand how we got here, we have to look at how it all started. We mentioned The Last Dance, and that was a great moment. But something interesting is that it didn't all collapse immediately. What followed for around 9 months was perfection in my eyes. Punk, he started off slow, which some people critiqued, but I personally was a fan of. It was the story of Punk getting back into his element. He would have a fantastic match and mini program with Eddie Kingston. He'd have arguably AEW's best feud ever with MJF. And this was really the story of Punk's run in the beginning. Everything he touched would turn to gold. His MJF program, his Kingston match, his story of getting to that level. Punk was the top guy in AEW for a while, and he was loved by the audience. And it seemed at the time he was loved by the people backstage other than Eddie Kingston. The question really arises. When will Punk go for the world title? He was their top star, their top babyface, and it felt like only a matter of time before he touched gold. And he got that opportunity against Hangman Page. And this is where we begin the fall of CM Punk. There was a controversial promo where Hangman Page said, "I'm not defending this title from you, I'm defending this company from you," which at the time just seemed like a weird promo, but as time went on, the meaning of this promo meant so much more. There were some rumors that Punk was responsible for getting Colt Cabana nearly fired from the company, which Punk very much declined. And Punk, he would beat Hangman Page for the world title. Big moment. The era of Punk seemed like it would begin after a fairly disappointing feud with Hangman Page, which never really reached the levels it could have. That's what it seemed like, at least. Everything was pointing towards the direction that this was where Punk's run would truly begin. All of the fantastic work we saw at the beginning really just felt like the prequel to the era of Punk. And then he got injured. AEW had to crown a new champion. It was Jon Moxley. And this is where the fall of Punk continues to snowball. Punk would come back. He'd come back. It would be a pretty cool moment. Not like a crazy moment, but it was very cool. It felt like AEW was getting back on the right track. Punk was back. He was in a program with Moxley. He had a shocking squash defeat against Moxley. Moxley would squash him. Then we saw some fantastic promos. It was all leading up to CM Punk versus Jon Moxley at All Out. And this is where Punk would win the title again. And now, the era of Punk begins. Or so we thought. Which seems to be a common thing to say about Punk's run. Because it felt, especially when he came in, that he was going to be the guy of AEW. But things just kept getting into the way. And this time, it was not only an injury, but Brawl Out. Brawl Out was one of the biggest disasters of a company's PR that I've ever seen. Punk would shoot on the Elite. He'd call them out. He'd specifically call out Hangman Page. And he went very, very brutally, at least in his eyes, honest on them. He did not hold back while Tony Khan was right next to him. He called them every insult in the book. And the Elite took exception to this. What happened next is reported in many different ways, but all we know is the Elite, CM Punk, and Punk's good friend and mentor, Ace Steel, got into a brawl. What followed was Ace Steel getting fired, the Elite and CM Punk getting suspended, and AEW going into this sort of crisis mode. 4 of their biggest stars, including their world champion, suspended. This was huge. This was awful for AEW, and this is where Punk's run really took a downturn as people started to ask, is he worth it? Should CM Punk be here, or should he be fired? And it really did look like AEW was going to fire Punk at a lot of times. But they didn't. They did not fire Punk. Tony Khan, he is a huge CM Punk fan. He famously or infamously went on a rant about what a draw CM Punk is for the company. And instead of firing him, they gave him his own TV show. And this is where the story of AEW Collision begins. When I say Collision was Punk's show, I mean it was Punk's show. Everything revolved around him. The top heels, every top heel of the show seemingly would have some sort of interaction or feud with CM Punk. The top babyfaces, FTR, would team with Punk regularly. He was the guy backstage. He reportedly had a Collision ban list, which meant he was in charge of who was even put on the show. Every aspect of the show revolved around CM Punk. And this, honestly, Collision had a lot of criticisms, but I feel overall it was a great show. I feel like it was a different pace to Dynamite, which was refreshing, although I do like the pace of Dynamite in its own. This different type of show was intriguing to at least me. Giving these guys the spotlight was intriguing to me. And Punk honestly did some of the best work of his career in AEW. Better than most of the things that he's done. I'd say the only things that really exceeded are the Eddie Kingston mini program, the MJF feud, and maybe parts of the Moxley program. But this wasn't meant to last. There always felt like it was a ticking time bomb and something was going to go wrong eventually. And what really made things fall apart was none other than Jack Perry. But how did this Jack Perry business start? How did Jack Perry lead to CM Punk being fired? Well, it all started on Collision. Perry wanted to use glass in the segment. Punk said no, in quite an aggressive way, one would assume, and this caused heat between the two. Perry would then use glass at All In and would say the line, "This is real glass, go cry me a river." Punk took exception to this and the two would end up in a backstage fight. The exact details of the fight isn't known, as there's a lot of contradictory reports going around, but one of the things reported and seemingly confirmed by the way Tony Khan is acting is that Punk was aggressive towards Tony, maybe even lunged at Tony. Just to talk about the exact details of the fights, again, lots of stuff going around, I don't want to spread false information, but this would lead to Punk being fired, which would make you assume that something severe happened. I'm not going to say what exactly, but if TK would go to the extent of firing arguably his biggest draw, then something insane must have happened, something like being launched at TV. He got a promo after firing him, saying that he was scared for his safety, for the safety of the people who work for him. Whether this is true, whether this is just PR, I don't know, but take it as you will. When talking about where it went wrong for CM Punk, it all really stems from the Hangman feud. And it just slowly developed. Punk made enemies in the wrong places, and I think he made way too much enemies. I'm not gonna pretend Punk is a victim. I know people are going that route. I don't think so. I think he's been wronged in many ways, but I don't think he's a victim. I think there's a common thread in backstage politics in AEW, and it's usually CM Punk. We didn't really see this stuff before Punk, and I don't think we're gonna see much of it after Punk. Do you think it was the right choice to fire Punk? I don't know. I really don't know. I think I'm a big CM Punk fan. I always have been. But I was so sick of all of this backstage politicking that maybe it is. I don't know. That's up to you to decide. You personally. What's wrong with Punk? The Hangman feud, the constant backstage politics. Honestly, what didn't go wrong with CM Punk and AEW? This long story that we've covered in this video of constant problems backstage, constant arguments, making enemies in the wrong places, making enemies with top stars, hurting the company overall, really, because they couldn't use their top star against other top stars like the Elite. And the Elite had no interest in working with Punk, even if Punk wanted to work with them. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for joining me. If you're interested in more content like this, subscribe, like, would mean the world to me. Thanks for joining. Have a nice day.